Hello everyone, welcome to Academy of Civil Services. And throughout these video programs, we would like to give you some important current affair topics which are relevant to our prelims examinations. And you know that the last 1.5 years of the current affairs are relevant for the preparations. And we would like to help you throughout these video sessions, which some topic were discussed frequently in the news, and those topics were in the major discussions and that are related to our syllabus like economy, polity, geography, and history, and including the science and technology, ecology, environment. So those topics will be discussed throughout this video session, and please stay tuned with us and we'll help you to assist your preparation better.
Another approach, how to study the news, how to study the current affair. I am telling you another approach, which is I am naming that the snowball approach. What we have did with the BIMSTEC and how we went to the ASEAN, how we went to the BRICS or the SAARC nation, then we went to the neighborhood first policy, activist policy. So this approach in the study we call it a snowball approach. That means a topic came in the news. For example, BIMSTEC was in the news. So static 1, then static 2. Then within the static 1, we also went for detail about A and B sections. Then static 2, ABC. And again, apart from that, we also went for associated informations, A, B in detail. Then again, the same map. Are you able to see the changes in the PPT? Are you able to see the changes in the animation in the PPT? I'm telling you a snowball approach. Whenever you see a topic in the news, if it is continuingly discussing in the newspaper, that means that topic is relevant. So you need to have an approach, a snowball approach, taking the subjects and going in detail about connecting to the static 1, static 2, then associated fact, A and D, A and B in a small letter. So example I am giving, BIMSTEC was the topic we have taken. You can relate it. We have taken the BIMSTEC topic. The static 1, we have understood that this is syllabus of International Relations Organization. Then we studied about BIMSTEC in detail. Then we have studied about the member status. Then IR policies or the another static subjects in the main practice we went, that is neighborhood first policy and activist policy, static syllabus, main perspectives we went. Associated information. Then what were the other organizations in the South Asia? Then we have studied about SAARC. Then we have studied about ASEAN. BRICS was missing, that we will continue later. So this way you have to continue this snowball approach. If you have this snowball approach, definitely you will clear this examination. This is the approach where the toppers have taken. Those who are unable to clear, they were not taking this approach. They only studying about what the mistakes we are normally do an aspirant, what the mistake we normally do, we only study about BIMSTEC. We'll neglect this part, we'll neglect this part, we'll neglect these parts. That's not sufficient. So if you have this approach in connecting and understanding the subject relevance to and linking to the statics, linking to the related facts which are relevant to UPSC, then you are on the tracks and you will clear it. This novel approach, please keep in mind. Okay, then we'll start. I hope all of you have seen the latest UPSC 2021 results, and the topper was the Sudhi Sharma. Then even a lot of results were came, some of you might be familiar with, some of them will be your friend, or some of them you maybe from your college, from university, like that. Some connection will be there. And we also had a lot of friends, those who cleared this year, and they have cleared this exam after second, then after third, after fourth and fifth and sixth, and one more also, the seventh attempt also, one of our friend Anjali Bhavana cleared these examinations, and she was also the former student. She also cleared this year UPSC 2021 results after the sixth attempts failure and the seventh attempt of the UPSC they cleared. So this is kind of approach. This is the kind of commitments that we must have. That once we start this examination, once we have a set of goal that to become an IS officer, to become a diplomat, that means Indian Forest Service, or to become an Indian Police Service, or any services mentioned in the UPSC civil service examination, if you wish to achieve that. And you have started now, you have started attending the classes, already joined these courses, you have attended the classes of the previous, and we have made a goals, that means by 2023 or by 2024 or by 2025, I'm going to appear this examination and I'm going to clear this examination. So you have a target now. If you start now with a smart work, with a strategic plan, definitely when you are appearing for the first attempt, or if not that works, then the second attempt, the third attempts, you will definitely achieve that. So those who clear, they didn't decided to leave back, or we will say never give up in this journey. If you continue with a consistency, with a smart efforts, you will reach into that positions. Like when you sometimes you will fall in the exam, you may not be able to study in a perfect way. Somewhere you were lost in your control, in particular to the studies, preparations, etc. This can happen to any of us. But if you accept that challenges, if you are ready to correct those mistakes, and if you're ready to continue this race, these tracks, we still ready to continue the race and still ready to defeat yourself, you will reach there. Another example. Now, another example I would suggest, you do not require to compare with any of others. You have to compete with yourself only. For one of the example I will give you, one of our friends from Kerala, in this year also, he achieved the 57th rank in the UPSC 2021 result. In the previous 2020, that was his first attempts. He also were in the toppers, and he got previous year around 310. His name was Alfred Vincent. The last year his rank was 310 and already was into this toppers rank list. But this year he again appeared for the examination and he beaten himself. That means the earlier rank was 310 in the last year, but this year he got 57th rank. So he is beating his own rank. So like this can also we can adopt that when we fail, it doesn't mean that we are not going to achieve it. We have to beat ourselves. We have to challenge ourselves. We have to be ready for the challenges and achieve this examination, and you will reach there. That commitment, that perseverance, that consistency in this journey must be there. We be patient. If you continue and if you're ready to face any of the challenges, because you are going to appoint as an IAS officer, as a police officer, as a diplomat. For example, if you're a diplomat, you have to deal with Indo-China border disputes. You have to deal with the terrorist-related facts, terrorist-related political, geopolitical issues in international perspectives. You must be able to handle those such situations. So you must be ready now itself by accepting the challenges in these examinations. So you, in this, throughout the journey, you will develop that skills in the futures, and you are appointed as a servant. You will be able to deal with any of the issues, any of the situation that's. So that's what the journey, what we will learn through this process. That's what I would like to say with regard to the latest the results, and there will be a lot of video stories will be coming in the YouTube, like toppers, their talk, their strategies, how they achieve this much ranks, what they've adopted the strategy for prelims, the mains examination, etc. They will discuss. So you can watch those videos when you are free, especially when you are going for lunch, when you are going for a tea breaks in the evening, or when you feel so, you can watch those videos in the upcoming weeks to make an understanding about this examination. Understanding this examination is the first step to study or to clear this examination. That's what I would like to suggest. And now coming back to the today's sessions. Today's sessions are mainly focusing on the international relations specific current affairs which were in the news in the past few months and which will be relevant for your future upcoming examinations. So I have taken the specific current affair topics which were in the news in part of international relations. Why we need to give importance to international relations also I will say. How do we identify, how do we calculate whether this topic is relevant or not? The method to understand the relevance of a topic is to go through the previous year questions or the past years of the UPSC question papers. And when you go through the past years of question paper or the previous year question paper, you can understand that this way the questions are coming, and this is part of the international relations. This is part of the geography. These are the questions which part of Indian history. These are part of the questions of ecology and science and technology like that. So then we will calculate how many number of questions are coming from this particular syllabus or this particular topics. For example, Today's we are focusing on international relations. According to the research which we have done from the past 2011, like from 2011 previous year question paper to 2021, we have seen that on an average 4 to 8 number of questions are coming from international relations. That means on an average we can take 5 number of questions. 5 questions are coming from international relations in the prelims examination. 5 questions means 10 mark in the prelims examination. 1 questions carries 2 mark. So if 5 questions are coming in an examination in the prelims, 10 mark weightage is for the international relations. And why these questions were asked, then if you research on that, then you will understand these international relations topic or international organizations or foreign policies of India was asked because those topics were the major discussion of that news in that particular year. For example, if we are appearing for this year, we are going to appear for this year to 2022 prelims. And whatever the news with regard to international relations was there in the news from 2021 January to this like May, whatever the current affairs were like discussed about the international relations, those topics will be relevant for our 2022 examination. Like this, when you are appearing for the examination either in 2023, 24, 25, that 1.5 years of the current affairs are relevant. Out of that, any international relations, if those topics were discussed in the news, you can expect a questions in the prelims examination. Any doubts with regard to international relations, we will discuss after the sessions, and you can also post the doubts and sessions in the Q&A session, the end of the session, then it will be very easy for that discussions. You can see I'm taking some of these like few questions here in the slides. There are a lot of questions every year. There were 4 to 8 number of questions from international relations. Like they were asked about Lookist policy in 2011. Then the members of RT councils. Then they have asked about which of the following that India is a member or not a member. Then they have asked about International Labour Organization. Then they have asked about International Atomic Energy Agency. Even out of this, we have understood that international organization questions are more, or international organization related questions are coming from the prelims. Out of international relations, and international relation is also our main syllabus. It is also our prelim syllabus. In the prelims examination, most of the questions was related to international organization, and there are lot of international organization. If anything coming in the news, we have to study about that because questions mostly coming about this international organization. So we have to study. I will discuss the focus areas of how to study this international organization. Before I am going to start the class of today's topic, you please follow me. I will help you how to study this international organization for the prelims examination and what were the focus area we need to give emphasis. When we say international organization, your first priority to study the international organization is the major international organization like UN, United Nations. You have studied about UN, United Nations in your schools, in your like 12th standard or 11th standard, or maybe in colleges, or if you are preparing for any other competitive examination also, you might have prepared about United Nations. And this year, United Nations is very much relevant because of the Russia-Ukraine conflicts, because UN was formed after the World War II in order to ensure international peace and security. But this body was failed to ensure an international peace, especially in this region of Eurasia. So UN, in many cases, there was critics' perspective that UN has failed to ensure the peace in that regions. So the bodies or the agencies of the UN is relevant in now. So UN has 6 principal organs. Along with that, it has a lot of agencies, UNESCO's. Then there are a lot of UN agencies are there. So we have to study about all the bodies, all the organizations like UN General Assembly, United Nations Security Council, International Court of Justice. So these, like there are a number of organizations associated with UN is the first priority that you have to focus. After this, India is located in the Asia region or Indian Ocean regions. Then we call it as Asia in total, in this part of Asia. So in Asia's Pacific organizations are there. In international relations, in international perspectives, we already studied about major international organizations like UN bodies. Now we are coming back to the Asia because India was part of Asia. India is part of Asia. So in Asia Pacific organization, like you might have heard about Asian Development Bank, a banking organizations between the countries of Asia, and there are other members also part of that. Then Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIB. Then BIMSTEC, which India is also part. India is a member. The South Asian countries are part of this BIMSTEC. Then SARC. So these Asia Pacific organization, where India is also part, will be more important. So those organizations we have to give an emphasis for the prelims. Then international organization, which is mentioned and discussed in the news. Specifically, there will be any organizations, whether it will be Asia Pacific, it could be Euro specific, for example, European Union, NATO, all these were in the news associated with Russia-Ukraine conflicts. So international organization, if that is mentioned or if that is discussed in the news, that is relevant. Then India's specific interest with the organization, like India's significance, why India's like making a relationship, or why BIMSTEC is an important for India, why India denied, or why India is not supporting any summit of SARC. What is the issue with India's membership in the SARC, or what is India's approach towards ASEAN countries, like India's specific international interest of particular organization. Then International Solar Alliance, why India is interested like on forming an international solar alliance, energy associations or energy agency, any things. The India's membership status, some of the organization, maybe India is a member, some organization India may not be the member. So when we study an organization, we have to note down whether India is a member or whether India is not a member. Or we can also say in deep, like whether India was a founding member or whether India joined later. Along with the membership, we have to identify whether India signed any agreements, signed to that organization, whether India ratified it to that. Some organization India may not be ratified. Some organization India may not be party to that. Some organization India may not be the member, but India will make an association with them or will be having a partnership with them. For example, ASEAN, we have a partnership, a trade relation with ASEAN, but India is not a member of ASEAN. OECD also, India is good in partnership with OECD. International Energy Agency, one example I am giving, India not a member, but India is an associated member with the International Energy Agency. So these are some of the specific areas we need to focus. Then climate perspectives, there are a lot of conventions, there are a lot of agreements like Kyoto Protocol, UNFCCC's Paris Agreements, Kartanga Protocol, CBD, Conservation Biodiversity. There are a lot of climate, environmental, ecological perspectives organization will be there. The nuclear related International Atomic Energy Agency, non-proliferation treaties, energy related, etc. will be relevant. Democracy, governance perspectives also there are organizations, democracy related or governance perspective, for example, FATF, like those organizations we'll discuss in the class. Then environmental related organizations like IUCN, the sites, the traffics. So there are units like UNEP, United Environment Programs, so environmental protection related organizations also there. So this way, we have to give a focus areas, and these topics we need to give emphasis for the prelims examination. Moving on, how to classify this international institution and organization or the groups according to the subjects. International relations is not in a static or not in a subject which is not an alone, which is not in a standalone an area. It will be related to different perspectives. For example, I would like to classify these international institutions in different sectors. Here you can see in the table. When you see an international organization, you have to identify which affairs this organization deals with. For example, economic affairs. When you study Indian economy, you also need to focus on any international organization which is dealing with economic affairs, economic trade, economic development. For example, IMF, International Monetary Fund. How many of you have heard about IMF, International Monetary Funds? You might have heard about this in the news. Then World Bank. These two institutions was formed after the World War II. This mainly deals with economic affairs, economic trades, etc. Then there are a lot of organizations that there that you can find out, and you can make a list of that. We have to study in all the areas political affairs. That means politically, geopolitically, ensuring international peace and security, or international foreign policies stand in independence stand, etc., like United Nations, in the non-alignment movement. That was India's independent foreign policy in a formats, and we finally established and formed non-alignment movement after the Cold War, during the Cold War, or after the World War. So non-alignment movement, etc., we will say it's a political affairs of formation. Then human rights organizations are there. So these are the kind of the political affairs or political rights, political geopolitics, or international peace and etc. This will be their objectives. Then conservation, mainly historical will be the conserving the historical monuments, historical important places like culture, integrated culture related conservation on ecology also there. So there will be conservation related organization like ecological perspectives. Give examples like traffic, IUCN, sites. There are a lot. Then International Energy Agency, conservation energy. We have organization like International Energy Agency is there. Then climate change affairs. You already heard about UNFCCC recently. Their COP26 summit was held at Glasgow. Then there were a lot of pledge was there. Then Paris agreements. These are climate change affairs. Science and technology also there. Research and development in the field of science and technology. You can see this Antarctic Treaty Organization, Antarctic regions research oriented basis, development basis, scientific, like those field also we have specific organization. International space stations, one of another examples, like who are the countries, who are the like agencies. International space agencies are part of international space stations. So these are the some of the specific areas when we say science and technology related international organization. Then regional specific, especially specific to India or Asia or Indian Ocean. We have seen that ASEAN, BIMSTEC, STARC, APEC. Then we have seen Indian Ocean Commission. There are a lot, African Union, European Union. So regional specific, there will be a group of people, group of countries will be part of that. So this way also you can study the international relations in a group. And we in the ACS also, Academy of Civil Services also will come up with you a compilation of international institutions, groups, or organizations which were in the news discussed. So we'll also give you a compilation of the discussed news of the international relations in a list of important international organizations for your prelims at the end of the towards the end of this session or the class or the course, or maybe end of your like towards the end of your examinations. So whatever the international organization were mentioned in the news, we'll also compare. This image you've seen in the PPT was the latest our like compilation of international organization we are prepared for those who are appearing for 2022 examination. This compilation is already uploaded in their course also. So those students were able to access and they were able to revise. Now, we'll start with those sessions. One of the organizations which were discussed in the news was the BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC is strategically an important international organization for India. And this BIMSTEC was discussed in the news in the past few months. And that's why we have taken this topic as one of the international organizations for today's current affairs. So identifying the relevant news, that means we know that international relations, international organization is one of the important part for our claims. If any organization discussed in the news, not just one time, if this discussed for 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, and continue another the next week and the this month. So BIMSTEC was one of these such organizations were discussed in the news during their summits, even after India's strategic significance with BIMSTEC. This is why BIMSTEC is an important current affair for this year also, next year also, or whichever year you are going to appear this examination. So BIMSTEC is a topic that we are going to start in today's sessions. BIMSTEC was started discussion in the news when it had at the 5th summits of the BIMSTEC, which was hosted by Sri Lanka virtually. And Sri Lanka, already you know that Sri Lanka was now facing an economic crisis. They're facing a balance of payment problem or like challenges of forex shortage, and they are in a huge debts. Because of this, they were unable to import the oils or the basic food which is needed for the publics. They were not able to manage the economic affairs of the nations. It resulted into political instability. Finally, recently, the Prime Minister also resigned. You have seen that a lot of protests going on in Sri Lanka. Are you able to are you already followed this news with regard to Sri Lanka economic crisis? How many of you have followed the news with regard to Sri Lankan economic crisis? You have seen that. Yes, many of you, 2025 of the you have already followed the news with regard to Sri Lankan economic crisis. And this is also affecting India. Like you have seen that people from the Sri Lanka, because of the economic crisis, because of loss of job, loss of such livelihood, they finally moving to Chennai, which is the region which is near to the Sri Lanka. They are moving to Chennai or the Tamil Nadu, and as a refugees. So the refugee problem we have to face if the Sri Lanka is not stable. And Sri Lanka is our neighbor country, our like the marine neighbor, and we need to assist them as a humanitarian perspective. We have to assist Sri Lanka. As in bilateral trade also, we have the responsibility to assist them in economic perspectives. This is why India was helping the Sri Lanka by giving the fund through the line of credit. That means giving the soft loans to Sri Lanka, financial support to Sri Lanka, because China was also supporting them. But India cannot stand in deviated from that. We also part of that. It is a strategic relevance for India to assist Sri Lanka during this economic crisis of the Sri Lanka. Even though there was a problem within the domestic of the politics of Sri Lanka, but they hosted this BIMSTEC summit at that time by virtually. This was the 5th summit of BIMSTEC. After this initiation of the summits, summit means the organization, maybe annually, maybe biannual. That means once in a 2 year or 3 year. These member countries will meet together and they will have a prosperous discussions, or they will have a thematic discussion on particular areas of discussions. So like this, BIMSTEC, the last summit of BIMSTEC was the 5th summit, which virtually hosted by the Sri Lanka. And our Prime Minister Narendra Modi has discussed and addressed the members countries or the participants at that sessions, and he said that the BIMSTEC is that much relevant for India. It is an opportunity for India to bridge the connectivity, the prosperity, the security among the member countries of BIMSTEC. The most of the member countries are our neighbors within these regions of the South Asia. So the BIMSTEC free trade agreement was one of the proposals that Pradhana Mantri Narendra Modi has discussed in that sessions. When he was addressing to this virtual meet of the BIMSTEC 5th summit, he was proposing that we need a free trade agreement. Free trade means a free flow of goods and services, a free trade movement between the member countries of these BIMSTEC members. It must be promoted. It must be enhanced the economic ties within the member countries. So Pradhana Mantri, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi has proposed the BIMSTEC free trade agreement. That's why the BIMSTEC was discussed a lot in the news recently. And this is why we can expect a question. And if you relate, when this BIMSTEC was formed, you can see the historical data here. This BIMSTEC was an organization, a Southeast Asia's organization formed or established in 1997. If we calculate today, or this year is 2022, and if we calculate from 1997 to 2025, this is the 25th anniversary of the BIMSTEC formations. So this way also you can expect a questions. Any organizations, if when it was formed, the date of its formations and the particular year which you are going to appear the UPSC examination, you have to calculate whether this organization has any anniversary celebration this year. For this year 2022, we have already told our students that BIMSTEC is relevant in between because of its anniversary in its formations. Like 1997, if you calculate with the 2022, and if you divide 2022 minus 1997, we'll get 25 years. So this is the 25th anniversary of BIMSTEC. Is one of the reasons we can expect a question. And this was formed by signing a Bangkok Declaration. So we can also expect questions. Which of the following organizations was formed by signing of Bangkok Declarations? The signing agreement of a particular organization is also important because MCQ related questions also focusing on these facts. So this organization was formed in 1997 and it was through the signing of Bangkok Declarations. We'll see who are the members. When the BIMSTEC was formed, it was not named as BIMSTEC. The initial name, when it was formed as a country of group of people, it was the founding member or the initial member of this organization was only 4. Who are them? Like one was Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. These were the four countries was there in the initial stage, and they formed an organization was named as BISTEC. BISTEC means that in name by the countries Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Thailand. In the picture, in the image also you can see the roundings where these countries are belongs to. One is Bangladesh, our neighbor. Sri Lanka is also was our neighbor, and India. Then Thailand was not a neighbor of India, but Thailand was also part of this formation of the BISTEC. And later, the other countries were joined, and it was renamed into BIMSTEC in the current name. The current name is BIMSTEC, which is stand for the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation is the current name of these countries, which is BIMSTEC. So later, the initial stage, only 4 countries were part of. So the question will be coming like this. Which of the following countries were the founding members of BIMSTEC? This way also questions can come. That's why, who are the founding members we need to study when we study international organization? Are you able to get it? When we study international organization, we need to give importance to who are the founding members, whether India is a founding member or not. In this particular case, you understood that India was a founding member when it was formed in 1997. Then moving on, like who are the next members? We have seen that Myanmar, already India, Bangladesh, Thailand and Sri Lanka was member. Later, Myanmar was also our neighbor country. Myanmar is our neighbor. Myanmar in time, like after 1997, when we was formed, Myanmar also joined with this organization. Then Bhutan and Nepal also joined with these organizations. This formed in 1997. Later, within the same year, Myanmar also joined. In 2004, Bhutan and Nepal also joined. Together, we have got around 7 member countries within the BIMSTEC now. So current members are 7. The last members to join the BIMSTEC were Bhutan and Nepal. Before that, it was Myanmar. The founding members were, the initial members was the Thailand, Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka. Myanmar was joined in this towards the end of 1997, and the Bhutan and Nepal joined February 2004. And by this joining of these other countries, all together formed as BIMSTEC countries. And when we went again classify the member countries, then we understood that 2 ASEAN members are part of these BIMSTECs. Then we can also expect the question like, which of the following members of the BIMSTEC are ASEAN member? Or another way, which of the ASEAN member or which of the following ASEAN member are part of the BIMSTEC countries or BIMSTEC members? So this way also questions can come. So that's why we have to specify which are the 2 ASEAN members which are part of these BIMSTEC countries. Those are the Myanmar and Thailand. Then the Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal are part of these our neighbor countries. Then if we say ASEAN, 2 ASEAN members are part of this BIMSTEC, then we also should refer to ASEAN member countries. So one way we have started about the BIMSTECs, then we are linking this BIMSTEC with another organization because somewhere the BIMSTEC is associated with at least the Eastern Southeast Asian nations like ASEAN members. 2 ASEAN member countries are part of BIMSTEC. This is why we also need to refer to ASEAN. This is the curiosity that you should have when you study a particular subject. So we have seen that India is not a member of ASEAN. India is not a member country of ASEAN, but India had a good ties or international relations or association or many summit with ASEAN. And ASEAN is also recently in current affair because there was a trade deals within the ASEAN countries called as RCP. How many of you are familiar with the RCP? Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCP. RCP is also part of this ASEAN trade complex relations. Recently, India withdrawn from the RCP agreements because some technical and trade issues, especially from the cheap goods coming from China. So this is why India left from that RCP. So ASEAN was a current affair also. This among the ASEAN member countries, this Myanmar and Thailand are the 2 countries part of the BIMSTECs. And other member countries of ASEAN we need to refer. When you study the member countries of an organization, you can also make, in order to remember these organizations, we can also make a code. We can also make a code to remember all these member countries. ASEAN has total 10 member countries. Nobody is allowed to get in the membership ASEAN. ASEAN has a like limited membership in themselves in the Southeast Asian national countries, and total members of ASEAN are 10 member countries, and others are not allowed to be give as a member. They can make observer. They will be a association member. They will be have a trade relation with them, but they cannot enter into the group of ASEAN. So ASEAN membership restricted to the Southeast Asian nation only. In total, currently 10 member countries are there. So you can also make different forms of code. Like in this way also we have made, you can see in these slides, TV symbol CB, one way of making the or remembering the codes or the name of the countries which are part of ASEAN, because questions can come also like that. Which of the following members, which of the following countries are members of ASEAN? Like Thailand, T stand for Thailand, V stand for Vietnam, S stand for Singapore, I stand for Indonesia, M stand for Myanmar, M again stand for Malaysia, Philippines, Laos, Cambodia, Brunei. These are the 10 member countries of ASEAN. Or if you're not able to remember in this way also, you can make stories. You can make stories out of this. For example, another example I am giving, how to study the member countries of an international organization if that has been discussed in the news. For example, if ASEAN is there in the news, ASEAN definitely ASEAN will be in the news. In the 4-year future also, ASEAN is relevant. So to remember all the 10 member countries, you can also make a story like this. I'm linking to the IPL cricket match. TV में हम लोग देखता था, IPL match में देखता था. How many of you are watching this IPL? So nowadays we are also watching in the YouTube or like the Hotstar, etc. The digital OTT platform. We can watch the crickets and etc. The earlier format, in order to remember this, आप लोग सोचना पड़ेगा. The TV में हम लोग देखा था IPL match. So IPL match, the TV. So you can make a code in that way also. TV में IPL cricket series match हो रहेगा. अभी batting मुंबई का है. So this story also you can make. Are you able to understand the Hindi? How many of you are from the not Hindi background? I hope you will understand that TV, when we have seen the TV and we are watching a TV match of IPL series, and today's match was batting by Mumbai. This story also you can mix the TV, the Thailand, Vietnam, then Indonesia, Philippines, Laos, C for Cambodia, S for Singapore, and two M are there. One is for the Malaysia, one is for the Myanmar, and B for the Brunei. This way also you can remember the 10 member countries of the ASEANs. Are you able to understand the methods how to study the member countries? If you have this kind of story making, this kind of intelligence, if you use this kind of smart study, it is very easy. You will be enjoying this process of studies. So rather than remembering every name, it will be very difficult for you. You have to not only studying ASEAN, there will be a lot of member countries will be coming. So to make easy in your study and enjoyable, you can make this kind of stories. टीवी में हम लोग देखा था आईपीएल क्रिकेट मैच सीरीज अभी आज मैच का था बैटिंग मुंबई को दिया था so like that story you can also like make such kind of things. Am I audible now? Some of you are commenting that you can confirm it in the Q&A session. Yeah. Okay, if the audio is a problem, I will use the mic. If yeah, most of you are fine, then I will continue with this thing, this notes. So let's end here discussing that we are starting discussion with the BIMSTECs. And when we have discussed about BIMSTEC member countries, when we are discussing about BIMSTEC member countries, when we are discussing about BIMSTEC countries, we have analyzed two countries where part of ASEAN is also part of our BIMSTEC organization. And this is why we are also studying about ASEAN members. Then the Myanmar and Thailand are the two countries are part of BIMSTEC. And India is not part of ASEAN because ASEAN members are limited to the region itself. So this is why we need to study about ASEAN member countries. Lot of questions, lot of news also were there. Earlier also we have expected like there were questions from this part. So in future also we can expect questions on ASEAN. So when we study an international organization, to remember the members, you can make a stories line like this way in connecting to whichever the area you are interested in. Moving on, I hope you understood. Like I'm moving on to the next areas of the same topics. IPL, this also a one link you can mix. Moving on to that same BIMSTEC, we are coming back to the BIMSTECs. Now we have studied when the BIMSTEC was formed, it was formed in 1997 by signing a Bangkok declarations. And initially, it was 4 member countries were there. India was part of that, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Thailand. Later, Myanmar also joined. Then in 2004, Bhutan and Nepal joined. Total now, currently 7 members countries are there in BIMSTEC. Okay. Then after we have discussed about the analyzation of members countries, and we have understood that 2 of them from ASEAN. Then we linked it to ASEAN, who are the members of ASEAN. And we have made a code language to remember the members of the ASEAN countries. So now we have studied the members of the BIMSTEC as well as the ASEAN. Now again we are continuing the BIMSTEC. So last met before the latest summits which was hosted by the Sri Lanka, the last summits of the BIMSTEC was held in Kathmandu in 2018. But after the pandemic situation, it couldn't meet later. Then they have met. The last 5th summit was held in which was hosted by Sri Lanka. Even there was an economic crisis. And 2016. Like this is significant, even though the BIMSTEC was formed in 1997, there was only less summit among the BIMSTEC member countries. Even India was not also giving such significance to the relevance of the BIMSTEC countries. So instead of BIMSTECs, in earlier geopolitics or international relations, we have given priority to the SAARC nations. There is another organizations within the Asia Pacific, within the Southeast Asian nations. The name was the South Asian Association of Regions, SAARC. The SAARC formats, there is a SAARC organizations, SAARC, SAARC, we call it as, it was another organization which is India is also a part. Before giving the significance to the BIMSTEC countries, we were focusing on SAARC countries. But there was a geopolitical, some issues with Pakistan because of the difference of political and the security angles, because of international disputes, bilateral disputes with Pakistan, we were having difference in the SAARC member countries. So SAARC is including the members of Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, and China, and all these members, this Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, not China. So these were the part of SAARC countries, and we have some difference within these countries. Because of that, we have a political and debate with the SAARC countries, and India was opposing these SAARC summits, which has to be opted was to be hosted by the Pakistan in the 90th summit, which India opposed. And after the 80th summit, the last SAARC summit was held on 80th summit in 2014 at the Nepal, Kathmandu. And after the second, the 90th summit was planning to host by the Pakistan, but because of the political differences, some terrorist infiltrations to Indians' border regions, we have difference of opinions. Even because of opposing on the terrorist financing of Pakistan, we are opposed. And we have opposing this hosting of the SAARC summits and later. So the last SAARC summit was 2014, and by that it ending the significance or relevance of SAARC. Later since 2016, instead of giving SAARC, current government of India understood that we should give importance to the BIMSTEC nations. So in 2016 onwards, India started giving emphasis and given importance for the BIMSTEC country. The latest example, you can see that before that was attack on Uri by the Pakistan in that infiltration regions, and there was a difference between the SAARC countries. And we have another organization was BRICS that we'll study later. BRICS summit was held at Goa in the previous times, and during that BRICS summit also we have called this BIMSTEC member countries during 2016, I think. So we also called these BIMSTEC member countries to participate and have a leaders summits along with the BRICS summits. So since 2016, India has started giving an emphasis or importance or significance to the relevance of BIMSTEC and emphasizing BIMSTEC is more strategically relevant to India. This is what India's perspective is today. So when this SAARC was mentioned associated with this fact of BIMSTEC, we have to study who are the members of the SAARC nations. The SAARC nations, here I'm going in detail about who are the members of the SAARC. Along with the BIMSTEC, when we study BIMSTEC, we already studied about ASEAN. Now we are studying about the SAARC countries who are members of the SAARC. Here you need to study that India and Pakistan together are members of the SAARC countries. Then other neighbors, Nepal is part of that, Bhutan is part of that, Bangladesh is part of that, Sri Lanka is also part of that, Afghanistan is also part of that, Maldives is also part of that. So in total, I think 8 member countries are part of the SAARC nations. The last member, I think Afghanistan is the last member added to the SAARC groups. and it was founded in 1985. 1985. If you are appearing the examination in 2025, it will be an anniversary for you. So SAARC nation was founded. This association was founded in 1985, December 8 at Dhaka in Bangladesh. So Dhaka Declaration, the SAARC nation was formed. The SAARC association, so I don't know the exact stand for the SAARC. You can search in the Google. And now I forgot the exact stand for the SAARC nations. So you can refer that in the net. Now, along with the BIMSTEC, when we study BIMSTEC, we are also somewhat linking the member countries of the BIMSTECs, like ASEAN and the SAARC. So significance, already said that, according to the Prime Minister, which they have addressing the virtual summits of this, which was hosted by the Sri Lanka recently, the 5th summits, Prime Minister also said that BIMSTEC is not only connecting the South and Southeast Asian nations, but it also ecological connecting between the great Himalayas of India to the Bay of Bengal. Bay of Bengal, you know the oceans, which is the eastern part of India, which is flow through, which is the oceans, Bay of Bengal. Most of our cyclone are coming from these regions. In geography, when you study the geography, you have to go through the map of the world. When you know the map of the world, it will be very easy for you to study the international relations also, how that much significance is. So great in Himalaya of the ecological significance of Bay of Bengal together, it will be connecting each other. That's what the Prime Minister says. So, and he also quoted this into a different format that with shared values. All these countries were the historical ties. Even we have ties with Burma. We have ties with Thailand. The Buddhist cultures are ties with them. Historical and cultural ties are the ways of lives and destinies that are linked between the BIMSTEC countries. And BIMSTECs represent the common space for the peace and development of the Southeast Asian nations. And it is also relevant for India in our foreign policy perspective, which is neighborhood first and activist policy. When you study the BIMSTEC, why BIMSTEC is significant for India, this is also your mains perspective, and this is also your prelims perspectives. So why BIMSTEC is significant? We can expect a question, why India is giving more significance to BIMSTEC rather than the SAARC nations? We already discussed. SAARC, we have a difference with the Pakistan in many of the cases, and since 2014 there was no any summit was hosted by SAARC member countries because of the political difference among the member countries. So India cannot depend on the SAARC nation now. Even Afghanistan crisis, you already have seen that after taking over the Kabul, India's expected the ties with Afghanistan also affected. So this is why we cannot depend only on the SAARC nations. So India was now diverted or strategically given emphasis more on the BIMSTEC countries, and we also proposed for free trade agreement between the BIMSTEC nations. And it is connecting the South and Southeast Asia, not as well as the connecting between them, the regions, but also the ecological connection is also the great Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal. So these countries can also collaborate in addressing the disaster effects like cyclones. Mostly these cyclones are affected these eastern coastal regions because of the cyclones coming from the Bay of Bengal. So if these countries coordinate effort, if these countries are collaborating, giving warning on time, can also assist in disaster management or mitigations. This way you have to write the main census. And in policy perspective, we have two policies. India's foreign policy, one of the foreign policy of India is neighborhood first policy. When it comes to international relations, India's priority is to given to neighbor nations. You have seen that when Sri Lanka is facing economic crisis, India was the initial country or the first country to ready to assist Sri Lanka immediately because we are giving importance to our neighbor first. If neighbor is facing challenges, it is India's humanitarian and ethical and policy responsibility to assist and help them. So this is part of our neighborhood first policy. We are not making any enemy within our neighbor region. Already we have many hostile conflict with China and the Pakistan that you have seen already. So to make our neighbor a good friends, that will be very strategically, security angle also very relevant. So that's why neighborhood first policy is part of that. Then activist policy, you have seen that to make a good ties with our eastern nation and Southeast nation, ASEAN countries, or this Myanmar, Thailand, Indonesia, all these regions are important activist policy. So when we say neighborhood first policy, we have to study about what is this neighborhood first policy. So in these slides and followed by another slides, we'll discuss about this foreign policy perspective of what is neighborhood first policy, what is activist policy. In the mains, you can also expect in the future about this policy perspectives in international relations, what is mean by, or explains what is neighborhood first policy, what is its significance for India. So one neighborhood first policy, you see that India has neighbor countries like Bhutan. Whenever a government is formed, for example, this current government initially came in 2014 after the elections. So in the government of India is prioritized to visit. When the Prime Minister was elected after the 2014 election, you have seen that Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to visit first to Bhutan. That means before he visiting other places, he was prioritizing to visit our neighbor nations. The first visit of Prime Minister was to Bhutan when he came into power in 2014. So that's why the neighborhood first policy is relevant. So India's governance or foreign policy perspectives was giving priority to neighbor. Bhutan, Bangladesh, we are maintaining a good ties with Bangladesh. You know that the Bangladesh were liberated in 1971 after the war, which India was assisted. And Bangladesh got independence from the Pakistan because Pakistan was discriminating this Bangladesh. It was known as East Pakistan at that time after the partition, you know that. So historical perspective we'll also study later. So Bangladesh and India was good a friend now. We are maintaining a good ties with Bangladesh. Bangladesh is also part. Myanmar, you know that Myanmar is sharing our border with the northeast states, and we have a lot of connectivity program within the Myanmar. You have seen that the Calcutta port, one of India's Calcutta port is connecting to one of the Situate port of Myanmar. How many of you are familiar with the Situate port or Calcutta port, which is connecting our West Bengal to the Myanmar? Through that, we can easily connect it to our northeastern states. To connect the northeastern states, I will try to draw here. Very difficult when we see northeast. Already the northeastern region was neglected many times in perspectives of development. This is the only route which is called as Siliguri corridor. If you want to move any road connectivity to the northeast states, we have only a route which is this region is known as Siliguri corridor. In trade perspectives, we call it a Siliguri corridor, which is very tight, a small narrow connectivity regions. It is affecting our trade routes or trade connectivity to we have to make a connectivity to the eastern nations and upward also, and to make a development in this region is very difficult. So alternative way of making a connectivity to this region is a good ties to Myanmar. This is why India want to have a good ties with Myanmar. Even though there was a civil war happening in Myanmar, you might have heard about the civil war happening in Myanmar, refugee crisis like Rohingya economy, like Rohingya Muslim refugee crisis now. Even though there was a political and issues, even though there was a civil war in the Myanmar, but still India want to maintain a good ties with Myanmar, which is majority of Buddhist population in that region. Still India want to make a good relation because it is strategically significant for India to have a connectivity program, connectivity enhancement to these regions. So because of that area, there was some Situate port is there. Port means connected by ocean. There's a port. Situate port is this Myanmar, and this some Calcutta port, I don't remember exact word, from the Calcutta, and it is connected to Myanmar, and from there it will be connecting to, I will take the other color. Through this way, we are connecting here, and through that we can easily reach to the northeastern states like Mizoram and Meghalaya, all these regions. We are easily connecting now. So this is how we are giving importance to the Myanmar. This topic also very relevant for you to understand the future topics, the future news which coming to India-Myanmar relations. When it comes to India-Myanmar relations, India-Bangladesh relations, these points you keep in mind. This will help you in understanding the news when you see it. Moving on, another country. You have seen that Indonesia, we know that Andaman Nicobar is an island, part of India. Anybody from Andaman Nicobar in today's session? We already have a student from Andaman Nicobar. I don't know. Okay, let's see. So Andaman Nicobar is part of that. So Andaman is sharing border with the maritime border with our Indonesia. Indonesia is also there. So Indonesia can be considered as a neighbor. So Indonesia is another area, another neighbor that of India. Then we are moving on. Sri Lanka, of course, our maritime, which is slightly linked to our Chennai, the port. There is a ocean which is separates. This is called as Palk Bay. I'm not able to write well, but try to understand is Palk Bay. You can also look back to your map in a Google map, or you can also search. The Palk Bay is a small connectivity which is connecting the Sri Lanka and India, which is border with the Chennai regions or the southeast of Indian parts of the region. This is why there is some tummy issues also which we have with the Sri Lanka, and also whenever any crisis happens in Sri Lanka, the people coming from people are from Sri Lanka is moving to this Chennai region or Tamil regions of this way. So the Palk Bay is in the news. So map location also you can expect like Palk Bay is located in, or Palk Bay which separates India and Sri Lanka. That's kind of statement also we can expect in the prelims examination. These are the facts. And moving on, the next country, Maldives. Lakshadweep is there. Below Lakshadweep, we have an island nation in Indian Ocean, which is Maldives. Maldives is also our neighbor. Recently, Maldives is also in the news, and India supported the Maldives presidential election, the UN General Assembly and other things. India also good ties with the Maldives. There was an anti-Indian campaign conducted by an opposition parties of Maldives, but later government of Maldives also opposed that the anti-Indian campaign and it was banned. So Maldives also want to make a good ties with India now. So this is why Maldives is also a significant part of neighborhood first policy. Pakistan already you know. Afghanistan also we have shared border. When we say the map of India, Pakistan does not agree that we are part of Afghanistan. China also not agreeing that India is like having a sharing border with Pakistan. We know that the Pak occupied Kashmir, according to India's stand, it is India's part of that. So these regions, you might have seen that in political map, we say, according to India's perspective, according to Indian perspectives, this is currently known as Pak occupied Kashmir, but this region is part of India, according to us. So this is why this is sharing a border with Afghanistan. So that is why we say Afghanistan is also our neighbor. According to India's foreign policy perspective, you should understand that Afghanistan is also our neighbor. This way also you have to think about, because this is a kind of question we can also expect. This is why Afghanistan is also part of our relations in the neighborhood first policies. Then Nepal, then China. So these are the countries, these are the neighborhood countries which are relevant for India. And when we discuss about neighborhood first policy, so all these nations, how India is maintaining good side with this neighbor nation is part of our neighborhood first policy. Moving on detail about neighborhood first policy, it is to ensure a peaceful and integrated neighborhood in the Southeast Asian nations and improving India's ties with immediate neighbors. All these countries are immediate neighbors, sharing border by maritime, sharing border by lands. That's why these countries we say immediate neighbors of the India. Then focusing on the cooperation and based on the needs, requirements, neighboring countries, when they face any crisis, any challenges, humanitarian threats, or any economic crisis, India will be ready to assist them. Linkage between the connectivity between the domestic priorities, foreign trade, etc. Many areas will be connected. And the term of neighborhood first policy, many of our former prime ministers, former politicians has discussed about these terms in a different perspectives. According to our former Prime Minister A.B. Vajpayee, he also termed the neighborhood first policy why it is relevant. He has said that you can change your friend but not your neighbors. So this some of the quotes of this our popular leader or the former Prime Minister also you can quote in your main answer writing. Like the neighborhood first policy was significant according to like Prime Minister A.B. Vajpayee also has mentioned that you cannot change your friend, but you can change your friend, but not your neighbors. That's why we have to give significance to our neighbor nations at first. And Manmohan Singh also mentioned that the real test of a country's foreign policy is mean by or testified by how this country is handling its neighbors. So according to the Dr. Manmohan Singh, it's rationally he has said that the rational or the real test of a foreign policy of India deals with how we are able to handle the neighbor like India with China, India with Pakistan, India with Bangladesh, India with Nepal, India with Bhutan, India with Sri Lanka, like those are relevant. And 2014, Prime Minister Modi has chosen the Bhutan as first destination of his first foreign visits. And then he visited all the neighboring countries except Maldives because some political issues. Later, he also visited Maldives. So this is why we can say that we have given priority to neighborhood first policy, which is relevant in our India's foreign policy today. And the challenges which India faces in the neighborhood first policy, when we say in mains answer writing, when you discuss about the possibilities and opportunity for India, along with that also we will discuss what are the challenges, what are the problems that India faces in the neighborhood first policy. We already know that we have sensitive neighbors, like we have border conflict with China. We have border dispute with Pakistan. We have border dispute with Nepal also. We have demarcations of our external boundary. Mainly, that's what the difficult situation now. Because the line of actual control, ASEAN China, Makmohan line in the Arunachal Pradesh, ASEAN China in the northern part border of the China, and the eastern part, so the line of actual control, Galvan Valley conflicts, all these areas we have border conflicts with China. Line of actual control is the border line between India and the China. In the line of control, which we have dispute with Pakistan also, Pak occupied Kashmir, then the claim of the Kashmir, stand on the Kashmir issue, then the terrorist infiltrations, etc. High sensitive neighbors we have. This is one of the challenges that we face. Mainly dispute between the demarcation of our external boundaries, unsettled border dispute between the countries is a major challenges of India's neighborhood first policy. The major dispute with Nepal, you know, the Kalapani issue. Kalapani, whenever you see a news with regard to Kalapani, which is India-Nepal border disputes. This is also one of the tri-junction of India and Nepal, China. This is one of the areas which have a different political issues within Nepal. That also we please keep in mind. I'm going in detail. This topic, when India-Nepal relations come into topics, we'll go in detail about all these issues. At least now you should understand what are the areas which India's bilateral or neighborhood conflicts with our neighbor nations. And neighborhood domestic policy, you know that example is Sri Lanka, the Tamil issues with the Tamil populations. The Sri Lanka, we know the majority were Buddhists and the minority were Tamils. There is a political and the political and domestic political affairs in the Sri Lanka. There was a Tamil civil war was there during 1987 during the Rajiv Gandhi years. And later you know that it led to assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. All these were, even today also, this is a political, a major bilateral, a domestic political issue between India and Sri Lanka. It's a major challenges to our neighborhood policy. Even with Bangladesh, we have a dispute with Bangladesh, which is called as Teesta water dispute, because Teesta is the river which is shared between the India and Bangladesh. It's flowing from the Sikkim. I think it is the the state water, which is the one of the important significant waterways for the Sikkim region, and then it passed through the West Bengal because of the chief minister of West Bengal not agreeing with this sharing these water resources to the Bangladesh. Some political and other differences and strategical geographical difference between India and Bangladesh, another issue, the connectivity problems are the major challenges in the neighborhood first policy. We have to give the forward steps. We have to give some steps and suggestions. How can we improve our neighborhood policies? Like these are the list you can write in the main answers. Like we need to maintain a good ties with the neighbor, making constant talks, bilateral dialogue. You have seen the China-India dispute. You might have seen that commander level talks, police or the army level talks, diplomatic level talks with China. All the method of bilateral dialogue we are conducting to ensure a peace in the region of India-China border. One solution is there, and we are achieving that. Also necessary to give a frequent exchange of visits. That's why Indian Prime Minister visited to Bhutan, Indian Prime Minister visited to Nepal. Even though we may have a difference with China, China's foreign minister recently visited India. So like this visit between these neighbor countries also in future help to maintain good relations. So mutual benefit, everyone, all of them through making a good relations must get a mutual benefit. That means India should also benefit goods. China also get benefits goods. Sri Lanka also get benefits goods. So free trade agreements as one of the policy, making good economic ties, then establishing border commission. If there is a border dispute between the two, it is better to establish a border commission where both countries strategically discuss and solve those issues in a good manner. And policy of non-interference in domestic affairs. When we reorganize our region of Kashmir or region of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh into union territory, it is our domestic affairs. What is that? India stance. It is not any other country's discussion or interference. It will affect our policy of non-interference. That's why India always say the Kashmir or reorganization, Jammu and Kashmir or reorganization is the India's internal affairs. No any other countries has a voice on that. So if any countries intervene in this matter, it is affecting the foreign policy of non-interference according to the Panchashils. So this is what India stands. So improving regional connectivity, like we have made many regional road transport connectivity. Like one example is Agartala-Akhora railway connectivity link from the Tripura region to Bangladesh. So like we are also can improve by ensuring connectivity, by infrastructure, by bridging, by constructing bridge, by railway link, road link, we can also improve people-to-people contacts, and finally we can establish a good ties with the other nations. With this, we have concluded the neighborhood first policy. Then after the break, we'll discuss about actist policy also. This actist policy, neighborhood first policy, we have discussed it from the BIMSTEC because BIMSTEC was in the news. And we again move again in deep about this foreign policy. Neighborhood first policy, we can expect in the prelims as well and also in the mains. So that's why this content I've discussed in a mains perspective manner. And we'll also discuss about actist policy. That's also relevant when we discuss about BIMSTECs. So this policy will be very important for you to read and understand the future news. And you can also expect your questions in the future international relations in the mains. In the mains international relations, every year 2-3 questions are asked, weightage of 15 and 10 marks. That means 40 weightage of mark are coming from international relations. That way, mains also international relations. I hope you have understood the approach. It means that you have to see how I am going taking this topic in a different perspectives. That's what you need. That's what you are here with us. Like you can get all this topic from the news. You can get this topic from any websites. You can get this topic from any books. You can get these topics from your friend, any of the people. But the things that you were not knowing is how to approach this particular subject for the UPSC examination. So with that's what you are here with the ACS and you join for a course. And this is the benefit that you are getting that the outside is not getting. That means through the classes, you can see again and going back to the sessions. I've started with the current affairs, the topic of international relations. And I have said that international relations are relevant because the questions are coming in the prelims as well as the mains. And the organizations are more relevant questions for the prelims. And I have discussed about how to go through in international organization. And I have discussed which are the organizations where we need to focus or the focus areas of organization and how do we divide the section of international relations to subjective topics like economic affairs related, political affairs related, conservation related, like both historical and ecological perspective, climate change specific, we already discussed. This is the classification we discussed. Then I also assured that ACS in the end of your course or towards the end of the examinations, the entire current affair of the international organization will be made a compilations. I will show you the demo of what was the last year we did. What was the current affair? What was the current affair? What was the current affair with regard to international relations? What was the compilation we did? I will also show you that. So this, are you able to see this now the slides or these screens? Are you able to see the screen? Here you can see our page which we have made, the international organization which were in the news this year. So these are, we have given a list of 50, you can see the end of the page. We have given a 50 number of international organizations which were in the news. This was a compilation we have mainly given to this year students, those who are appearing for this year prelims. You can see that we have classified in an organization in a crispy manner. Like you can see, you have name of the organization. The second column, you can see that about the organization. That means the basic information that we already discussed about the BIMSTECs. Basic information was there. The member countries, because in prelims, most questions are asked about whether India is a founding member. Then who are the founding member? Then who are the members? So we have classified the member status into founding members. Then India specific fact, that means India's interest in the BIMSTEC or India specific relevant to this organization. That's what India specific facts. Like this, we have given a list of SEO, AIB, Asian Development Bank, BRICS nations, G20, G7, all these code grouping, ISA, SAARC countries, even we have discussed about South Asian Association, Regional Cooperation, 8 member countries are there. The last member to join this SAARC was Afghan, and observers we also mentioned. So like this way, we have covered the entire current affairs to this year students. And similar kind of current affairs will be provided to you in the future. That's one assistant we are providing. Then I also discussed that when you see a news, when any news which mentioned about international institutions, we have to take up that topics because it has a relevant to India. And we are not limiting our knowledge just with the BIMSTEC. When you individually study, when you do it self-study, you will only limit your knowledge with the BIMSTECs. That's what your limitation when you self-study without any guidance. The advantage of getting a guidance means that you know how to connect the same BIMSTEC current affair with the other. Then we went through the ASEAN. We have given a strategy how to remember the member countries. You can use the code, or if you are not remembering by code, you can make stories like टीवी में हम लोग आईपीएल देख रहे हैं क्रिकेट मैच सीरीज में आज का मैच बैटिंग कर रहे हैं मुंबई तो इस स्टोरी में like you can also make by saying the story in your own regional language, not by means of Hindi. Hindi is just an official language. India does not have any national language. English and Hindi are the official language that India is following, not a national. India does not have a national language. That one thing. And every regional language is also respected and must be protected, which is a cultural needs that we need to enhance. And that's why the regional language also you can use in order to make a story of these words, either Malayalam or Tamil or in Marathi or any other language, Odia or any language, Assamese. There are a lot of language. India is a linguistic diverse country. So you can make a story on your own perspectives. So that's way you can make stories. And we have studied about the ASEAN. Then we linked it to SAARC countries. After the SAARC, we have understood that BIMSTEC is relevant for our India's foreign policy perspective of neighborhood first policy, then activist policy. Then we were like discussing about neighborhood first policy in the main perspectives because this neighborhood first policy is relevant in terms of mains. So that way we have discussed about Bhutan, we have discussed about Bangladesh, we discussed about Myanmar in a one line or two line manner. So in a mains, you are expected to write an answer about this particular question in 150 words or 250 words. So you cannot write a more 100,000 word only about India and Myanmar. When the question is about India's, explain the significance of India's neighborhood policy or explain the challenges that India faces with the policy reference to neighborhood first ratios, the significance, why they are relevant, like that. So Myanmar, we discuss about connectivity relevance, Bangladesh neighborhood priority, Bhutan neighborhood first priority, etc. This way you can discuss. Then we have went for detailed significance of neighborhood policy. We discussed about what were the opinion of different prime ministers, former prime ministers, and the current prime ministers' opinion and the priorities about the neighborhood first policy. Then we have discussed about the challenges that neighborhood first policy faces because our neighbors are sensitive. For example, Pakistan, for example, China. We have seen the issues with Pakistan. We have seen the issues with China. Apart from the Pakistan, China, we also have bilateral boundary dispute with Nepal. We have maritime dispute with Bangladesh. Then we have also discussed about Kalapani, like which is Nepal specific domestic politics, which is affecting India's neighbor relation with Sri Lanka. Tista, that means geographical diverse or relations, geographical impacts. Tista water sharing between India and Bangladesh. Way forward. Then we give problems in the answers. As an aspirant, as a civil servant, when you give a mains answer, we also need to give suggestions or the forward perspectives. I mean, conclusive perspectives, the future perspectives about this problem. How can we address the problem? How can we solve these issues? So that is why forward, way forward. So that must be there in your answers. And this way we have to study. So that means when you study a topic, you have to go through like an answer. That means what is this? What are the opinion? What are the codes? What is challenges? What are the challenges? And what are the way forward? What are the solutions to it? So this way we have to go through the study approach also. Then we are moving on the activist policy. Activist policy also very much relevant in this particular topics, the BIMSTECs, because BIMSTEC countries, like Eastern nations also part of this policy. And that's why the activist also in relevance with regard to BIMSTECs. Earlier, before the activist policy, we know that we were like prioritizing, I'm talking about when we got independence. When we got independence, since 1947, we were prioritizing on West activist policy. We were actively involved in the Western politics, the West Asian nation, the West European countries, America, or the other nations. or the African nations or the West Asian countries like Arab world. So then since 1947 onwards, our foreign policy was focused mainly on these West activist policy or the West policy. Later we have understood that we have also should give importance to our East policy. So in my side, this is East and this is West. So the earlier format of India was giving more weightage, more focus on the West, and then we have understood that we have neglected the significance of the East. So later the government started with the Lookist policy. How many of you are familiar with the Lookist policy? Before we introduce in the activist policy, we have started with the Lookist policy, 1990s. So that means we have started like making a good ties with our Eastern nation along with the West. That what this time. But the both the Lookist policy was like a very soft policy. Lookist policy is just really looking, we just looking the left, not giving much emphasis on that. We are just familiarizing. We are just making as connections, but not making an interesting partner. So to make an interesting partner, to make an active partner in the East, we have changed our Lookist policy. We have redefined our Lookist policy into new term, that is activist policy, since 2014. So then we have started and we have prioritized the activist policy, actively involved in the Eastern regions, including the Pacific regions. Like we have seen that India ties with Japan, India's ties with Australia, India's ties with New Zealand, India's ties with the Pacific Ocean nations. That's why you recently know about the code grouping. The code grouping, India, Japan, Australia, and the US are the members. The code grouping is also part of our activist policy. Then making ASEAN, East ASEAN summits, connecting ASEAN member countries, ASEAN India summits, making good ties with the BIMSTECs and other member countries of the ASEANs, bilateral trade with Australia. We have economic trade agreement with Australia was in the news recently. We are also good with New Zealand. We are also good with Japan. We are also good with South Korea. We are making good relations with most of these Eastern nations by emphasizing, giving priority to the activist country. Activist, that means Eastern, Southeast Asian countries. That's what the activist policy redefined our policy. This is why activist policy is very relevant. We'll go in detail again. The activist policy, which give you a partnership in such a forum, which are like annual summits, strategic dialogues, defense dialogues, a number of forums for energy cooperation, counter-terrorism. Then we also together like proposal for the UN reform, cyber security, maritime cooperation, because these regions, Bay of Bengal, then the Pacific Ocean is coming together. All our like climatic relevance, whether we get good rains, the cyclonic effects, the earthquake, tsunami effects, everything is like disaster related. All this also linked to this region. So Indo-Pacific region. So India's participation with the quarterly meeting with the US, Japan, Australia is also part of activist policy. And India is very cautious not to offend the China in this process, even though we have a geopolitical difference with China, and China is also engaging with these countries. And India cannot neglect this part. We should also be part and actively involved in these areas. So that's what India's priorities. India's independent stand on making activist policy. The Lookist policy was the first policy we have given emphasis or interested in the region, but later we defines that over the years we have understood the relevance of changing the policy from Lookist into activist policy or adopting activist policy. Now, India, we know that we have a strategic partnership with Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, Australia. In addition, BIMSTEC group countries like Thailand, Myanmar, Asia Cooperation Dialogue, we have Mekong Ganga Cooperation, we have Indian Ocean Rim Association, we have all these associations. Why we give priority? Because it is part of our India's activist policy. So India's activist policy support the connectivity program for the promoting regional cooperation, integrating the northeastern regions. When we have a good ties with the eastern region, it is indirectly giving development to the northeastern region. We know that before activist policy, the development of India was neglected to the northeastern regions. There was no road development, there is no infrastructure development, there is no human development in the northeastern regions. Later, through this policy giving emphasis to northeastern development, and most of the schemes you might have seen that a priority, a concessional support has been given to northeastern hill regions and their development. So this way, our neighborhood, by emphasis in neighborhood of the East, or East Asian nation or the Pacific Ocean nations. Through that, it will also develop the northeastern regions and the ASEAN countries and making good and benefit to the country. So that is the objective of Act-East policy, to promote economic cooperation, cultural ties, strategic significance and relation with the countries of Asia Pacific region. And this is why Act-East policy is one of the relevant topics you can expect in the prelims. Why these policies are also important for your prelims? You can see there was a question in the UPSC previous year 2011. They have asked about look-east policy of India in the prelims examination. So before I discuss about the answer, you can at least solve this question in the prelims perspective. You can try your guess. You can go through the each statements. You can also apply your logic and common senses, whether you are able to solve the question that I want to discuss. Now, this is a question you did not study well about look-east policy, but understanding this perspective, there are three statement type question. You can go through the each and every statement now. If you feel any statement is wrong and right, you can choose in that way and you can find the answer. So it was a question they have asked UPSC in 2011 about look-east policy. Similar way, we can expect the Act-East policy in the future. So three statement type question, you have to go through each and every statement and find the answer. I'm going to launch the poll. So first, all of you read the question. And after the 10 second, I will launch the poll. For 10 seconds, I'm giving you for reading the question. With reference to look-east policy of India, considering the following the statements. So statement 1, Indians want to establish itself as an important regional player in the East Asian affairs. Second statement, India wants to plug the vacuum created by the termination of Cold War. Third statement, India wants to restore the historical and cultural ties with its neighbor in the Southeast and Asian nation. I'm going to launch the poll. I'm going to end the poll. I'll show you the result later. I will discuss this question now. It was asked in 2011 with regard to a current affair of the look-east policy discussed in the news. Based on that, they have asked look-east policy. At that time, Act-East policy was coming in the frame of our foreign policy. At that time, we were prioritizing look-east policy. Let's understand that situation. Anyway, we are going through that statement. Statement 1, that's what Indians want to establish itself as an important regional player in the East Asian affairs. In these particular statements, if you look into common sense, in this statement does not talk about any negative. It's talk about the positive perspectives of India by making a policy towards the East. That means it talk about how it is important for India. It's not talking about any negative words for that. This is not relevant to India, or India never prioritizing any regional, becoming a regional player in the East Asian nation. That these kind of negative words are not here. So in the first statement, it is a general statement we say. That means it is talking about the positive perspectives of its relevance to India. Most probably in this statement, we feel that this statement is right because it is general statement. There is no any confusion in it. Look-east policy definitely will help become India an important player in the East Asian nation. That's why we prioritize the Act-East policy. One, if the statement 1 is right, an aspirant like you should go back to the option and eliminate option C, because in the option when you confirm the statement 1 is right, which of the any options, if does not mention about statement 1, you can delete directly. So we have eliminated option C, which is 3 only. Now we'll read the second statement. India wants to plug a vacuum created by the termination of Cold War. Saying that Cold War was like after the disintegration of Soviets, Cold War's significance or the conflicts was ended by 1990s. So it does not have any relation with the Cold War. We are not against like fighting, like we are not forming any other alternative or outcomes in the other format like that. We are not prioritizing that. Even then there was a Cold War, we have formed a non-alignment policy. It was an independent stand of India. Even Russia-Ukraine conflict also, you have seen that India neither supporting Russia, neither supporting US. India is taking its own independent stand on that. That is what India's foreign policy. So Cold War termination does not affect any of framing the policy. So this second statement does not have any relation with the look-east policy. Lookish policy we have given important because China is also giving emphasis on its relation with East Asian nations. So India cannot remain isolated in this or neglect this region. So India prioritizes this region to make a good relation, not to make any alternative or any vacuums or to plug a vacuum terminated by Cold War. It's nothing related to the Cold War. So that's why the second statement is wrong. It is logically incorrect. So because the second statement is wrong, we can eliminate D, which is talking about all of the above. So it is second statement is wrong, we eliminated option D. Now we remain the third statements. The third statement also will read, India wants to restore the historical and cultural ties with the neighbors in the Southeast and East Asia. This again, a positive words that historical and cultural ties with the neighbor of Southeast Asia will improve. That India can store through the Lookish policy, general statements. So that's why the third statement is also right. And the correct answer to the question was 1 and 3. Because first and second statement is a general statement talking about positivity and that how it benefit India. So this is why the answer to this question is option C, and we'll see who got the right answers. I'm sharing the result now. Majority have opted option B, 1 and 3, rights. That means you have got already the talents and approach and solving questions. Around 38 out of 80 number of you have attempted the question, 48% got the rights. That means appreciable. You're on the right track to get an answer. The logical application you already developed. And the 30% and the 13% and other remaining opted other wrong answers. It's okay. By going and attempting and practicing question, you came to know that this is the way to solve a questions. You are learning it. When you do mistake, it's not a failure. When you do mistakes, when you attempt a wrong in the answers, it does not mean that you are going to fail. You're learning it. Those who are not participating in the test, they are the failures. Like I have seen that maybe because of the time limit, some of you have skipped the question. But if you are skipping the participations intentionally or leaving the questions intentionally, then you are a failure. If you're ready to fail by attempting questions, ready to fail, you are going to success. You're achieving it. You're in the same tracks. You will achieve it by learning the mistakes you have done. That means here we have to practice a question, because UPSC is not checking your how many books you read. UPSC does not check how many books you read. UPSC will give you a question paper, whether you are able to solve this. That's what the question is. So that's why along with the studies, you have to solve the questions and you have to understand the pattern, the types and tricks, the tips and tricks. I'll also discuss about some tips and tricks with regard to international relations, how to solve a questions. And this way we have to study these topics. And I hope you understood the relevance of solving a question. Nobody is a failure till you are ready to attempt a question. By mistakes, you're learning. By achieving, you are the tracks and you continue that. Okay, that spirit you have to continue. And this was the question. Again, I'm launching a poll. Already we have taken the class on the BIMSTECs, and this is one of the testing knowledge about your understanding about BIMSTECs. One of the questions I'm giving here, 1 minute I will be giving. You can solve these questions. I launch the poll now. Read the question carefully and attempt the question. I will give maximum 1 minute and 30 seconds. All of you, please attempt these simple questions. ABC type question. Which of the following regional organization in which India is a member was established in 1997? The signing of Bangkok Declaration. Which of the following organizations which India is a member, means India is a member of that organization, established in 1997, the signing of Bangkok Declaration. Maximum 130 seconds. So which of the following organizations which India is a member was established in 1997, signing of Bangkok Declaration? The right answer to the question was BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC was formed in 1997 by signing the Bangkok Declaration, and which India is a member, which is BIMSTEC. India is not a member of APEC. APEC is option C. Please remember that India, out of this, India is not a member of APEC. India is a member of BRICS. India is a member of SAARC. India is a member of BIMSTEC. And BIMSTEC was formed in 1997 along with the Bangkok Declaration. India is not a member of APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. This is another regional organization in the Pacific regions, Asia Pacific region, where India is not a member, but India is an observer. Similarly, we need to go in detail about another information I'm giving. Bangkok Declaration is also a signing agreement of BIMSTEC, but same word, the Bangkok Declaration, the declaration signing agreement is also there for another organization, which is ASEAN. The ASEAN Declaration or Bangkok Declaration is also a founding agreement or a founding document of ASEAN known as the ASEAN founding document is also known as Bangkok Declaration, similar to BIMSTEC. But the difference here is India is not a member of ASEAN. In this particular question, you can see that India is a member, they have mentioned. So this way also you can see the differences. Even though the ASEAN Declaration has a name or the Bangkok Declaration is similar to the founding document of ASEAN, but ASEAN, India is not a member. So that word also you should be taken care of. ASEAN was formed in 1967. Another information, ASEAN was formed in 1967 with the 5 nations founding members. Like those who are initial members, we call them as founding member, like Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. They were the initial founding member of ASEAN formed in 1967. And this year, if we calculate, it is the 55th anniversary of ASEAN. So this way, the anniversary basis also ASEAN is relevant this year. And this question, the right answer was BIMSTEC. I will see who got the right answer. I will share you the result now. Yeah, majority of you have voted for the option B. Those who made a mistake, it's okay. You're learning, you're revising. You should remember that the Bangkok Declaration was formed by signing Bangkok Declaration. The BIMSTEC was formed in 1997, which India is a member and founding member. The right answer here is BIMSTEC. 78% majority, 63% of you got an answer to this particular question, that is good and appreciable. Those who made mistake, it's okay. You are learning in the process by revising through solving the question. So revising means that solving the question, you are revising the content.